So there's breaking news. They had teased this big national security arrest. Now, I think they teased a little over the top because it ended up being a story that we had been covering for over a year. And that was these Chinese police stations.
That's pretty hardcore stuff.
There are over 100 that have been identified around the world. We knew one of those was in New York City. It was shut down, but there was no other discussion about what happened to the people that were working there.
Further action, yeah.
2 individuals have now been arrested by the FBI, by the federal government, by the feds, and charged. The charge is obstruction of justice, and what is that's the main charge there. And the reason why is because these police stations, which we know are operating, in fact, other countries, Canada and the Netherlands, have just asked the Chinese to please shut them down. They're not willing because of the reliance on Chinese goods in the economy.
Yeah.
They're not willing to actually even shut them down themselves. I think by making the arrest, we've actually taken it to an escalation to not just deport them and send them back or use them as kind of a bargaining chip for something else, but to actually bring federal charges against them. And so they were operating in this nonprofit setting. I think it was the Chinese, it was like the Chengal. Yeah, it was something that no one would understand what it was, but it was right in Chinatown in New York, like on the 3rd floor of a building, nondescript. And it was not really, the allegation was not that this was about spying on Americans in the sense of the American government, but more about pressuring Chinese Americans to do that. And
it was more of a threat against people who were either had just moved or had family still in China.
which most do.
This wasn't really, it wasn't necessarily, as far as we know,
If you're
the
living
American
in
Chengal
Chinatown
Association.
areas of major cities, you likely have family still in China, like very close family.
And so they have a police force essentially there to make sure you're staying in line and keeping Chinese values.
And if you have a job at a place they'd like to steal the intellectual property
Yeah,
from,
it'd be great.
They go to you and say, you better give us this info or else this is going to happen. So it's a way for them to wield their domestic power overseas, their intimidation of their own people that they do with their lack of basic human rights in their own country, exporting it here. So it's a good thing that it was shut down. The fact that we've arrested them is interesting because usually in those diplomatic settings, that's about as far. It's kind of like that Wall Street Journal reporter in Russia.
Yeah.
They're not. Russia now is saying we're going to keep arresting Americans and you're going to trade us bad actors for them. You're going to give us the arms dealer, the merchant of death for a basketball player.
Right.
What would you give for a Wall Street Journal reporter? You know, and right, we should rightfully do whatever we can to get him home. Yeah. But they now know that the stakes are very high, and they can get a lot out of us.
Keep doing it, yeah.
Because we might not have any more merchants of death in prison, but we certainly have other
somebody
bad Russian actors.
Yeah, for sure.